Hello and welcome. Today we'll be talking about mind control. While it's obviously easy to tell that the body and mind are different, that these different parts of life seem to act differently, the physical, the emotional, the mental, actually, when we start to see how similar they are, we start to realize that we could treat them in the same way. You would not like to lose control of your body. If you've ever seen anyone with a movement disorder or Parkinson's, anything like that, you'll know that losing control of your body is pretty terrible. You would not want to lose control of your mind. If you've ever seen a crazy person, someone with psychiatric illness that's really suffering and is a liability to those around them, you also would recognize and honor how deeply beautiful it is that we have control of our minds. The key, though, is that control is not binary. It's not just a matter of whether you have control of your body or not. It's not just a matter of whether you have control of your mind or not. It's a matter of how much control you have over these very important and central parts of your life. I've been studying this for 26 years. I do cardiothoracic anesthesiology at a top center in the United States. We do valve transplants, heart transplants. We do lung transplants, minimally invasive, structural cardiac repairs. So we do a lot of different work, and the stakes are high. Self control is paramount, and it's not just physical self control, but also emotional self control and mental self control. Why? Because trust is at the heart of what we're talking about. Trust is a matter of reliability. The more reliable you are, the more trustworthy you are, the more valuable you are, the better your life probabilistically goes. Mental illness is tantamount to lack of mental control. The difficulty that we have with negative feelings is simply a testament to how challenging it is to control your thoughts and feelings, but it's not a dismissal of how valuable it is. So the question now is, who's up for a challenge? If you're like me, you like mysterious things. You like science. You like breakthroughs. You like success. You like spirituality. You see some of the connections between all of these different parts of life. And the connections give you a sense that things are actually part of one constellation. And you can map this back to the idea of yourself as not just physical, but also emotional and mental. I found it useful to tack three more conditions onto that and to personally identify with each of them. Just like I personally identify with my physical body, I personally identify with my emotional profile, I personally identify with my mind and my body of knowledge, I personally identify with also my bank account and credit score. I personally identify also, that's financial, with my popularity, my character, my reputation, what I'm known for, what I've made a name for myself for. That's social. And I also personally identify with my level of moral authority. For instance, if I felt guilty about something, that would be an example of low moral authority. And I would personally identify with that guilt in that case. So, the reason I'm bringing this up is because a number of people have asked me recently about things like mental health, mindset, both with respect to their parents, if someone as parents are alive or have passed and they're thinking about how they would like their parents to experience some things differently, have less fear in their life, be less grumpy, have more trust. Or, for instance, with their kids, if they want their kids to have more self esteem and better mental health. Of course, people are also very interested in themselves. All of us want to have better mental health. All of us want to have more physical, emotional, mental, financial, social, and moral pleasure and less pain. The question is, how do we deal with the pain? How do we deal with the discomfort, with the pressure that's on us when bad things happen? Because we know they're going to happen. So, can we get ahead of them? Can we, for instance, take them for granted that good things are going to happen, bad things are going to happen, and in a way, we can be less surprised by this? Let's take a quick pivot into two words. dependent and sensitive, and see how closely they're related to each other. By contrast to the next stage in their evolution, in the evolution of a person from dependent would then to become independent. In the same way, to become the evolve from sensitive would to become insensitive. Going from dependent to independent is similar to going from sensitive to insensitive. And we can call this liberation, emancipation, or desensitization, or caring less. What I mean to say is that part of control over the heart and mind, and also the body, includes the willingness to fail, disconfirmation. Seeking validation and invalidation are ultimately the same thing when they serve the same purpose. For instance, in science, and in business, we validate and invalidate ideas, concepts, principles through experimentation. If they work, they work. If they don't, they don't. And we let our ideas die so that we can succeed and we can survive. So we have to, in a way, not care. We have to learn to not care about failure. And when you first care less about failure, you then, on the other side of that, actually have an even better experience, which is being grateful for failure. There's a great saying that goes, your opponents are your greatest enemies. Excuse me. Your opponents or your enemies are your greatest teachers. The key is that you have to want to learn the lesson. You have to want to become better physically, emotionally, mentally, financially, socially, or morally, which includes learning the lesson. Of course, there are better and worse teachers, but there are also better and worse students. So when we think about what it means to go from sensitive to insensitive and overlap that with what it means to go from dependent to independent, and then to notice that we can go from dependent to independent to dependable, but that we have to pass through that independence first, or that we can go from sensitive to insensitive to sensible. The first one being the one who is influenced, the second one being one who is not influenced, and the third being the one who is influential. Dependent, independent, dependable. Sensitive, insensitive, sensible. This makes sense. This tracks. And then when you map it on to the grid or the matrix that we're all living in, it becomes very practical and quite urgent, in fact, which I call ASAP, ASAP, as strong as possible, as soon as possible, as sexy as possible, as soon as possible, as spiritual as possible, as soon as possible. That means that as we pass through this life, we're experiencing a physical, emotional, mental, financial, social, and moral matrix. We're experiencing it, but we are also being a matrix. I am a physical, emotional, mental, financial, social, and moral matrix. At least Kaveh Nawab is. Myself, my avatar is. And that thing, that object in the universe, is worth investing in. Myself is worth investing in. But the investment requires disconfirmation. That means that the thing that it was 5 years ago has to be buried, integrated, and transcended like a letter is buried in a word, and a word is buried in a sentence. The old me has to die or be buried to be brought back to life, to be brought back to a higher, bigger life. I hope this is making sense. Because the idea of going from dependent to independent to dependable isn't a matter of moving from A to B to C. It's actually from growing from A to B to C. So the A, or dependent, is still living inside of B and C, of independent and dependable. So that the sensitive is still at the heart of the insensitive and of the sensible. So that a broken heart, or a heart of glass that's shattered and hurting both the person and the people around them, because misery loves company, but company does not love misery. And also, when you laugh, the world laughs with you. And when you cry alone. A broken heart can turn toxic very fast, which is why it's so important to heal it, to re-anneal it, So a broken heart gets re-annealed by a narrative, which is the fear. Now we have a story of, oh, my pain is so bad, and I hope it doesn't happen again. So that narrative performs a protective shell, but that goes from a heart of glass to a heart of paper. The paper is still very unstable and it gets burned up by the heart of fire, which is the anger. So the sadness comes, the narrative covers it up, then the anger burns up that narrative. And that cycle of anger, fear, sadness is a very heavy downward spiral. And that's okay. We exist in this vortex of high pressure emotionally until we decide that we want to have more peace. And we encounter material like this that shows us that we can build a life, a self, a world, a reality of peace on a foundation and a past and a history and a personal biography of violence. That is in fact the way to master violence. Just like we bury the letter in the word and bury the word in the sentence, and we bury our old selves with our new selves, we bury violence. We bury sadness, fear, and anger. We don't get rid of them. We get over them. Go for it stands for get over fear of rejection in time. It's a curriculum I've developed for a specific problem, which is taking things personally, taking rejection badly, being oversensitive, overthinking in a way that results in a spreading across time and space and across self and others so that our power is all over the place. It's in other people, it's in other places, and not in us. This is a way to bring the power back home. It's a curriculum called Go For It, Get Over Fear of Rejection in Time. And I've given you a taste of it here as an introduction. Now, different parts of your mind will think, how can this apply to me? How can I make a business out of this? How is Kaveh making a business out of this, etc.? And those are all very good questions. So we're organizing those questions on paper in business plans, and we're doing that ourselves and then executing using events that we plan and offers that we make. But we'll also make this open source once we've validated proof of concept with minimal viable products. So we look forward to you being involved in whatever capacity you like, spending time, spending energy, spending money, spending attention. When you pay attention, when you pay money, when you pay time, when you spend your life, any small piece of it on anything, then you're invested to that degree. And if it's a good investment, then it has returns. So you can invest physically, emotionally, mentally, financially, socially, or morally, and you can have returns that are physical, emotional, mental, financial, social, or moral. Making any kind of sacrifice, burying or letting go of anything, including bad things, can yield really tremendous outcomes. So I hope that this has been somewhat persuasive, somewhat revelatory, and thought provoking about the possibility of improving your own life and improving the lives of others by paying special close attention to how much we value control and how chaotic it is to let things run their own course without intervening. So, look forward to talking next time. If you liked this material, please comment below which parts of this were the most um, provocative, most thought provoking, and share with your friends. And talk soon. Yes.